king of rock and roll. The world is shocked by Elvis Presley's sudden death after a
August 16th, 1977. The day the music died. But these rare funeral photos tell a story nobody wanted you to know. A story about a 9-year-old girl who had no idea she was witnessing the beginning of a 50-year family war that would eventually destroy everything her father built. Look at Lisa Marie in these images. 9 years old, clutching her black dress, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She doesn't understand what's happening around her. She thinks this is just about saying goodbye to Daddy. She has no clue that while she's mourning, the adults in her life are already positioning themselves like chess pieces on a board where she's the ultimate prize. Here's what makes these photos so explosive. They capture moments that were supposed to stay private forever. Moments that reveal the true nature of the people who claim to love Elvis the most.
And I just say I was raised on him. There's nobody else like him.
In one frame, you can see Priscilla Presley in what looks like an intense conversation with Vernon Presley, Elvis's father. This isn't grief counseling between family members. Look at their body language. Priscilla's pointing, her jaw set tight. Vernon's hands are raised defensively. They're arguing at Elvis's funeral, while his daughter sits alone just 20 feet away, trying to process the fact that her world just ended. What were they arguing about? Money. Power, control, the future of an empire worth millions that would eventually be worth billions. Priscilla knew that as Elvis's ex-wife, her claim to anything was shaky at best. But as Lisa Marie's mother, that was her golden ticket. Vernon knew it too. He was Elvis's father, but legally, he was about to become just another obstacle between Priscilla and generational wealth. But here's where it gets really dark. See that man lurking in the background of several photos? That's Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis's manager. The man who controlled every aspect of Elvis's career, who took 50% of everything, who many believe destroyed Elvis's chances at a legitimate film career and kept him trapped in Las Vegas when he should have been conquering the world. Parker is at this funeral not to mourn, but to protect his interests. Even with Elvis dead, Parker still had contracts. He still had claims, and he's watching this family tear itself apart in real time, probably calculating how he can profit from their grief. The most heartbreaking photo shows Lisa Marie standing alone next to her grandmother Gladys's grave. Elvis's mother had died 20 years earlier, and now Lisa Marie is visiting both graves on the same day. But look closer at this image. In the background, you can actually see Vernon Presley with a man in a suit holding documents. Documents that are being signed while Elvis's body is still warm in the ground. Those documents, they're the foundation of every legal battle that would follow. Estate papers, trust modifications, power of attorney agreements. The paperwork that would eventually lead to Lisa Marie losing control of her father's legacy, that would create the conditions for Riley Keough to inherit everything, and that would set up the betrayals that are still playing out today. What nobody realized at the time, not even Vernon, was that Priscilla was already 3 moves ahead. She wasn't just Elvis's grieving ex-wife. She was a strategic mastermind who understood something the Presley men never grasped. In America, image is everything, and she controlled Elvis's image through their daughter. The funeral photos show Priscilla doing something fascinating. While Vernon is dealing with lawyers and Parker is scheming in the shadows, Priscilla is controlling the narrative. She's positioning herself perfectly in every shot, making sure she looks like the devoted mother protecting Elvis's precious daughter. She's already building the mythology that would make her the face of Elvis's legacy for the next 45 years. But Lisa Marie? She's just a child, lost in a nightmare that adults created. These photos capture her innocence right before it was stolen from her forever, because what happened next would turn her into a pawn in a game she never asked to play. Within weeks of this funeral, the real battle began. Vernon would be dead within 2 years, conveniently leaving Priscilla as Lisa Marie's sole guardian and by extension the controller of Elvis's estate. Coincidence? These photos suggest otherwise. Look at Vernon's face in these images. He doesn't look like a man in charge. He looks like a man who's already lost. The most chilling detail in these photos is what's missing. Where are Elvis's friends? His band members? The people who actually knew him, who loved him, who made music with him? They're nowhere to be found in the family sections. They've already been cut out, dismissed, pushed aside by people who saw dollar signs instead of a man. This is the moment everything changed. Not when Elvis died, when his funeral became a business meeting. When grief became strategy, when love became leverage. Lisa Marie had no way of knowing that the adults comforting her, the family members holding her hand, the people promising to take care of her. They were already planning how to use her as a weapon against each other. She was 9 years old, and she was already the most valuable piece of property in America. These funeral photos aren't just historical documents. They're evidence. Evidence of the moment a family dynasty began cannibalizing itself. Evidence of the betrayals that would echo through generations. Evidence that explains why Lisa Marie spent her entire life fighting for control, why she made desperate financial decisions, why she structured her will to cut people out just like they cut others out at her father's funeral. The seeds of every tragedy that followed were planted in these moments, captured forever in photographs that were never meant to see the light of day. Those funeral photos we just saw, they were like a roadmap to destruction. Every betrayal, every broken promise, every family member turned enemy. It all started in those moments when a 9-year-old girl was grieving and the adults around her were scheming. Fast forward to 1982. Lisa Marie is 14, and Priscilla makes the decision that changes everything forever. She opens Graceland to the public. On the surface, it looks brilliant, turning Elvis's home into a tourist destination, generating millions in revenue, preserving his legacy. But here's what really happened. Priscilla just turned her daughter's inheritance into a business she could control. Lisa Marie didn't understand it then, but her mother had just stolen her childhood home and monetized her grief. Every ticket sold, every tour given, every Elvis coffee mug purchased, that was supposed to be Lisa Marie's birthright, and instead it became Priscilla's empire. By the time Lisa Marie turned 18 and legally inherited her father's estate, the damage was already done. She wasn't inheriting a preserved legacy. She was inheriting a corporation that her mother had built on top of her father's grave, using her as the emotional justification for everything. But Lisa Marie wasn't going to go quietly, and this is where the curse really kicked in. Her first act of rebellion? Marriage. 4 marriages to be exact. Danny Keough, Michael Jackson, Nicolas Cage, and Michael Lockwood. Each marriage was Lisa Marie's desperate attempt to escape the suffocating control of her mother and find someone who loved her for herself, not for her last name or her trust fund. But here's the twisted reality. Every man who married Lisa Marie was, in some way, using her connection to Elvis. Danny Keough was a musician who thought marrying Elvis's daughter would boost his career. Michael Jackson, he was obsessed with Elvis, collected his memorabilia, and marrying Lisa Marie was like owning the ultimate piece of Elvis history. Nicolas Cage literally owned a collection of Elvis artifacts and had been fascinated with him since childhood. And Michael Lockwood was her guitarist who saw an opportunity and took it. Lisa Marie knew it. She knew she was being used, but she was so desperate to feel genuine love that she kept trying anyway. Each marriage was another crack in her foundation, another piece of her soul traded away for the hope that someone might actually care about Lisa Marie the person instead of Lisa Marie the heiress. The real destruction came in 2005. Lisa Marie made what might be the worst business decision in entertainment history. She sold 85% of Elvis's estate to Robert Sillerman's company for $100 million. $100 million sounds like a fortune, right? Wrong. Within 5 years, that 85% was worth over $1 billion. Lisa Marie had literally given away her children's inheritance for pocket change. She traded a $1 billion legacy for what amounted to a few years of financial security. But here's the part that makes it even more tragic. She did it because she was trying to escape the curse. She thought if she could get liquid cash, she could break free from the Presley name, start fresh, maybe find some peace. Instead, she had just guaranteed that the family war would continue into the next generation. Because now her children, Riley and Benjamin Keough, were going to inherit the scraps of what should have been an empire. And Lisa Marie knew it. The guilt ate her alive. This is when her addiction problems really spiraled. By 2010, Lisa Marie realized the magnitude of her mistake. The remaining 15% of Elvis's estate, basically just Graceland and some personal items, was all that was left of her father's billion-dollar empire. And she was watching it slip away too, drowning in debt, legal fees, and the costs of maintaining a lifestyle that her depleted inheritance couldn't support. So she made another desperate decision. She restructured her will, setting up a trust that would bypass her mother entirely and leave everything to her children. But not equally. She knew Benjamin was struggling with depression, with addiction, with the weight of being Elvis's grandson in a world where he felt like he had nothing to offer. She worried he would destroy whatever was left. Riley was different. Riley was strong, stable, successful on her own terms. Riley had proven she could handle pressure, could make smart decisions, could protect the family legacy without destroying herself in the process. Lisa Marie's final will was her attempt to break the curse that had destroyed her own life. She was betting everything on Riley's strength, hoping that maybe, just maybe, one person in the Presley family could escape the cycle of betrayal and self-destruction. But Benjamin never got the chance to prove her wrong. In July 2020, at 27 years old, the same age his grandfather was when he became famous, Benjamin Keogh shot himself in his mother's Calabasas home. The official story was depression, mental illness, the pressures of being Elvis's grandson. But people close to the family whispered a different truth. Benjamin had found out about his mother's will. He knew he was being cut out, knew that Riley was inheriting everything, knew that his mother had given up on him before he'd even had a chance to prove himself. Lisa Marie never recovered from Benjamin's death. The guilt, the what-ifs, the knowledge that her attempts to protect the family legacy had cost her a son. It broke something inside her that could never be fixed. When Lisa Marie died suddenly in January 2023, she left behind more than just an estate dispute. She left behind a 50-year pattern of family members betraying each other in the name of protecting Elvis's legacy. The same pattern that started at that funeral in 1977, captured in photos that showed a family already at war while pretending to mourn together. The curse of the Presley fortune wasn't just about money. It was about the impossibility of loving someone authentically when their value to you is measured in dollars and cents. January 12, 2023. Lisa Marie Presley collapses at her Calabasas home and dies hours later at the hospital. The official cause? Cardiac arrest. But what happened next proved that her death was just the beginning of the most vicious family war in entertainment history. Within 48 hours of Lisa Marie's funeral, the lawyers were circling like vultures. And that's when Riley Keough discovered something that would change her life forever. Her mother had named her the sole trustee of the entire Presley estate. Not co-trustee, not shared responsibility. Sole control of Graceland, Elvis's legacy, and what remained of the family fortune. Riley thought she was getting a gift. She had no idea she was inheriting a war. Because the moment that became public, Priscilla Presley, the woman who had spent 45 years positioning herself as the guardian of Elvis's legacy, realized she had been completely cut out. Not reduced, not given a smaller role, eliminated entirely. Priscilla's reaction was swift and brutal. Within weeks, she filed legal documents challenging the validity of Lisa Marie's will. Her claim? Lisa Marie was mentally incapacitated when she signed it. But here's where it gets really ugly. Priscilla wasn't just challenging the will. She was essentially arguing that her own daughter was a drug-addled incompetent who couldn't be trusted with basic legal decisions. She was willing to destroy Lisa Marie's reputation, even in death, to get back control of Elvis's empire. The evidence Priscilla presented was devastating and deeply personal. Testimony from people who claimed she was incoherent during meetings. Documentation of her erratic behavior in the months before her death. Riley was watching her grandmother publicly humiliate her dead mother, and she was powerless to stop it without looking like she was just protecting her own interests. But then the real bombshell dropped. Court documents revealed that Priscilla wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Navarone Garibaldi, her son with Marco Garibaldi, a man who had no blood relation to Elvis whatsoever. This is where those funeral photos from 1977 become prophetic. Remember how they showed family members positioning themselves for power while a child grieved? 46 years later, the exact same dynamic was playing out. Except now it was Riley standing where Lisa Marie once stood, watching adults fight over money while pretending it was about family. Navarone's inclusion in this battle was particularly twisted. Here's a man who grew up with Presley privilege, lived off the Presley name, benefited from Presley connections, but had zero genetic connection to Elvis. And yet, according to Lisa Marie's original trust documents, he was supposed to inherit a portion of Elvis's estate alongside Riley and her siblings. The public couldn't understand it. Fans were outraged. How does someone with no Presley blood get a piece of Elvis's legacy while Elvis's actual grandchildren have to fight for what should rightfully be theirs? Riley could have gone nuclear. She could have exposed every ugly detail of the family dynamics, could have turned public opinion completely against Priscilla and Navarone, could have fought this battle in the media and probably won. Instead, she did something that shocked everyone. She chose grace. In May 2023, Riley reached a settlement with Priscilla. The terms were kept private, but the outcome was clear. Riley remained sole trustee of Graceland and the Presley estate. However, she agreed to give Priscilla a consulting role and allowed Navarone to keep a small portion of Lisa Marie's personal estate, not Elvis's legacy, but Lisa Marie's own assets. Why would Riley make concessions when she held all the legal cards? Because she understood something that had eluded 3 generations of Presley family members. Sometimes winning means knowing when to stop fighting. Riley had seen what the constant legal battles did to her mother. She had watched Lisa Marie spend decades fighting with Priscilla, fighting with business partners, fighting with ex-husbands, fighting with lawyers, until the fighting became more important than the legacy they were supposed to be protecting. Riley made a calculated decision. She would rather secure her position and end the war than risk years of litigation that would drain the estate, destroy family relationships, and turn Elvis's legacy into a public spectacle. But make no mistake, this wasn't weakness. This was strategic brilliance. By settling with Priscilla, Riley eliminated the biggest threat to her authority while appearing magnanimous and family-oriented. She gave Navarone just enough to prevent him from feeling completely abandoned, while making it clear that he would never have real power over Elvis's legacy. And she maintained the public image of unity that's essential for protecting the Presley brand. The settlement documents, when they were finally revealed, showed just how thoroughly Riley had outmaneuvered her opponents. Priscilla's consulting role was largely ceremonial, with no real decision-making power. Navarone's inheritance came from Lisa Marie's personal assets, not from Elvis's estate. Riley kept complete control of Graceland, all of Elvis's intellectual property, and every aspect of his commercial legacy. She had essentially given them just enough to make them go away, while keeping everything that actually mattered. But here's the most revealing part of this entire battle. Those rare funeral photos that started this whole story became actual evidence in court. Riley's legal team used them to show a pattern of family members exploiting Elvis's legacy for personal gain, dating back to the day he died. The photos proved that this wasn't just about Lisa Marie's will or Riley's inheritance. This was the continuation of a 50-year cycle of betrayal that started when Elvis was barely cold in the ground. Riley won because she was the first person in her family to understand that breaking the cycle required more than just legal victory. It required choosing not to perpetuate the destruction, even when you have every right to destroy your enemies. She saved the Presley legacy by refusing to let it consume her the way it had consumed everyone else. There's one more secret hidden in those funeral photos from 1977. A secret that connects Elvis's death to his grandson Benjamin's, a secret that explains why Lisa Marie's final will wasn't just about protecting Riley. It was about covering up the most devastating failure of her life as a mother. Benjamin Keogh was 27 when he died. The same age Elvis was when he recorded "That's All Right" and changed music forever. But Benjamin wasn't changing anything. He was drowning in the weight of expectations he could never meet and a legacy he could never escape. Here's what the media never told you about Benjamin's final months. He had discovered his mother's will years before her death. Not the official version that became public in 2023, but an earlier draft that told a very different story. In Lisa Marie's original will, written in 2017, Benjamin was supposed to inherit equal shares with Riley, 50-50, brother and sister carrying on the Presley name together. But by 2020, that will had been quietly amended. Benjamin's share was reduced to almost nothing, with a clause stating he would only inherit if he Lisa Marie thought she was protecting him. She thought tough love would force him to get his life together. She had no idea she was signing his death warrant. Benjamin found out about the changes in early 2020. A family friend, trying to help, mentioned the trust modifications, thinking Benjamin already knew. The devastation was immediate and complete. Imagine being told your entire life that you're Elvis Presley's grandson, that you're part of musical royalty, that greatness runs in your blood. Then imagine discovering that your own mother considers you such a failure that she's written you out of your inheritance while you're still alive to see it happen. But here's the part that makes it even more tragic. Benjamin was actually getting better. He had been clean for months. He was working on music, trying to build his own career without trading on the Presley name. He was finally becoming the man his mother always wanted him to be. And then he learned it was too late, that his mother had already given up on him. That Riley, his younger sister, had been chosen as the sole heir not because she was more capable. That final conversation between Benjamin and Riley lasted 47 minutes. Riley has never publicly revealed what they discussed, but people close to the family say Benjamin wasn't calling to say goodbye. He was calling to tell Riley that he knew about the will, that he wasn't angry with her, and that he wanted her to understand why he couldn't live with what their mother had done. Riley tried everything. She offered to split her inheritance equally with Benjamin once she inherited it. She begged him to wait, to let her fix what their mother had broken. She even offered to give him the entire estate and walk away from it completely. But Benjamin's response broke her heart. "It's not about the money, Riley. It's about what it means. Mom gave up on me while I was still alive. How do I come back from that?" Less than 2 hours after that phone call, Benjamin Keogh was dead. Lisa Marie found Benjamin after his accidental overdose. She was the one who called 911, who tried CPR, who screamed at paramedics to save her son. The guilt rewrote her completely. She became obsessed with protecting Riley from the same fate, with ensuring that Riley would never doubt her worth or her place in the family. Lisa Marie's final will wasn't just about leaving everything to Riley. It was about screaming from beyond the grave that she believed in her daughter completely and unconditionally. But there's one final twist that makes this story even more heartbreaking. Those funeral photos from Elvis's burial, Lisa Marie kept copies of them her entire life. They were found in her bedroom after she died, along with dozens of other family photos spanning 5 decades. In the margins of one photo, the one showing her as a 9-year-old standing alone while adults argued in the background, Lisa Marie had written a note in her own handwriting. "I won't let this happen to my children." She was wrong. It happened anyway. The same cycle of family betrayal, the same pattern of choosing money over love, the same devastating consequences. Except this time, instead of a child watching adults destroy each other, it was a mother destroying her own son while trying to save him. Riley knows all of this. She knows about Benjamin's final phone call, about her mother's guilt, about the real reason she inherited everything. The funeral photos that started this story weren't just historical documents. They were a warning that nobody heeded. A glimpse of what happens when love gets twisted into control, when protection becomes destruction, when family becomes a battlefield where the only victory is survival. Riley Keough is now the sole guardian of Elvis Presley's legacy. But more importantly, she's the first person in 3 generations who understands that preserving that legacy means refusing to let it consume the people she loves. The question is, will she succeed where everyone else failed, or will the Presley curse claim one more victim? The Presley family's secrets run deeper than anyone imagined, and we've barely scratched the surface. There are more photos, more documents, more devastating truths still hidden. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because this story is far from over, and the next revelation might expose the darkest Presley secret of all.